Welcome everybody to the Landsmeet, my very new experimental interview-based Dragon Age podcast where I bring on new guests every episode and we talk about Dragon Age. Today I am joined with Lambo. Lambo, how are you doing?
I'm doing really well today. I've been very excited to come on and talk about Dragon Age for an hour.
Hell yes, absolutely. That's exactly what the Landsmeet is all about for those who don't know. I just bring on guests and we just talk about everything to do with Dragon Age. So, hitting this off, Lambo, what does Dragon Age mean to you in any regard?
Dragon Age is the game series that I usually replay at least once a year to remind myself why I love story-based games or story-based series. That's not a word. It's my comfort zone. It's the game that I can replay, and every playthrough I'll find something new. For an example, I replayed Origins a few months ago, and once you've finished the Landsmeet, that's when you're told about the Grey Warden, the armory in Denerim.
Yeah.
I'd never been able to find it, and I don't know why. And in my most recent playthrough, I looked up like a guide as to how to find it, and I never knew that you could go in there and like find Duncan's shield and have that conversation with Alistair. And it just reminded me of why I love the games. There's so many little things.
Absolutely, yeah. So many little unique little trinkets that you just find new things, or you have a different playthrough, or you romance someone different, and you have a newfounded love for a different character. Like, that's exactly what I went through with Mass Effect this year. I used to be all in for Miranda Lawson. I used to have a certain Paragon playthrough with my male shepherd, but then, you know what, I'll play as FemShep, I'll romance Liara, I'll do choices that I don't normally do, and that's ended up being one of my brand new favourite playthroughs because I've done things that I haven't done before. And then you see all those unique, choices and consequences and just the dynamic of it and that replay value that BioWare pull off. It really is great, isn't it? And especially with Dragon Age when the world is so big and we've got so many different choices and consequences we can do, and Dragon Age Origins as well, the whole origin story system and how that comes into play, it's honestly spectacular, isn't it?
I really hope the Origin system returns in some capacity in the next game.
Yes.
And I actually had a similar experience to you with Miranda to Liara.
Yeah.
I'd never
really.
romanced Sarah before this year.
Oh yeah.
And before, I didn't really like her character. I didn't really take her very often. But after romancing her with a Kunari, coincidentally, that she really likes,
Yeah.
I actually got to understand her character a bit more, and I actually appreciate her more for what she is. Still not a favorite, but I definitely like her a bit more than I did.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, that appreciation for her has increased. She's not just. I mean, she is whack, completely whack. But I love that about her. I love that kind of. For me, she doesn't fall into a stereotype because she's so off the beaten path.
Yeah, for me, it was always I couldn't ever figure out what to do to get her approval. Like I knew, hate on nobles, help the downtrodden, but sometimes like her approval and disapproval would conflict. And then after the romance, I was like, oh, that explains why she didn't like me doing this, because it references like her connection to her mother and the cookies and all that, and perpetuating like that type of thing. It was really eye-opening, and I really enjoyed that because now I enjoy her character more. I had a similar thing with Cole. I'd never managed to get Cole to like maximum approval to get a few of those extra scenes, like going to the restaurant with him in Val Royeaux.
Yeah, I love that.
Until I did a Solus romance, and like I took him along because they pair really well together.
Absolutely, yeah. And you get to experience more of that as well. Because Cole, I went through a transition with Cole. I used to not like Cole, and I know it's sacrilegious to say, and I'm upset that I think that way. I used to think that way, sorry. But Cole is a very hard character to initially get. I think you need to spend time actually getting to understand Cole, and if you don't do that, it kind of you can't. It just kind of is on the side and he doesn't have much involvement. You need to go out of your way to try and like Cole or to try and understand Cole. And I think if you don't do that, you're not giving him the best justice he can as a character, because so much of him is kind of fragmented, and I think it just takes time for him to grow on you. But I think once you grow on him and once you get him, I adore him.
Yeah, I completely agree.
Yeah,
it's probably also a bit difficult because a lot of his stories in Asunder, the book.
Yeah, exactly.
And they didn't have too much to play out. Like I'd never read Asunder prior to this year as well. So for the past few years, I never really knew his story. I'd always I've done the human and spirit playthrough. I usually stick with human because I like how he changes. Yeah. And then there was a voice line when I was in the Hinterlands with him and Cassandra, and he's like, "Cassandra, do you hate me for killing the Lord Seeker?" And I was like, "What? He did it?
Yeah.
I thought it was the current Lord Seeker this whole time. What the hell?"
I think what's also interesting though, as much of his character is locked off in Asunder, his even more of his character is locked off in the Templar mission. So if you don't do that Templar mission, there's also fundamental aspects of his character that you're not getting because you started with the mages, and I think that's also a detriment to his character too, because within that mission you understand he's a spirit, why he's in your head, what he's doing, why he has these certain things, like why he is not weird but different in his way. And that mission fully explains it in a perfect way. But if you just do the mages, you don't get that understanding. And he is literally on the side as this guy in a weird hat being with these cryptic kind of messages. And you're like, who are you? What are you? Why are you here? And you don't get that
he just
full
shows up at the
understanding of it.
gate.
Yeah. So that's the detriment of Cole, unfortunately. A lot of his character is locked behind either a Templar mission or a Sunder. But I think if you do, like I said, if you do give him that time and energy, he is so bloody good. I love him so much. Honestly,
I do find it strange that if you side with the Templars, you can actually go to the Redcliffe Chantry and talk with Dorian and get like the details behind
yeah, you can, yeah.
Alexius, and then
Yeah.
go to the Templars
Then go,
anyway.
yeah.
But you can't interact with Cole at all if you go for
No,
the
I know.
mages. Like there's no even hint to him.
Yeah, that's the thing. At least you meet Dorian beforehand, but with Cole you don't. I think it would have been
Yeah,
cool
you,
if they did that, like you go, I don't know, if you could go to Farrenfall Redoubt, but if you went somewhere else, or maybe if Cole was at Val Royeaux, maybe they did something, but yeah, no, that would have been great,
because
but
yeah, with meeting Dorian, you know what you're sacrificing to get the Templars. You're leaving the mages in the hands of a
exactly.
Tevinter Magister.
Yeah, but with
And
the Templars, you don't know what's going on.
no, the only hint you get is the Lord Seeker, who is at the time the Envy Demon.
Yeah.
And I posted about it in your Discord that in Therenfall Redoubt, there's 3 different scenes where you can actually see the Cole lurking in the background
Yes,
when you're
I
walking
love
through.
it. Yes.
In like when you're walking across the bridge, he's amongst all the nobles. When you're walking through the gates, even though he doesn't have a hat, he's just sitting on the construction on like the wooden planks on the side. And he's just looking down at you.
Yeah.
And the third one, I don't think it is him, but there's like a crow somewhere with like a green aura just watching you the whole time.
I love that. I love the fact that he is there just watching everything go by. Even if, you met Dorian in Redcliffe, if you could have met Cole in Redcliffe at a different part of Redcliffe or something like that, or like in Orlais, to at least introduce you to the Templars, just to give you a little bit more of exposition, because it is like, oh yeah, there's so much going on with the mages and we don't know anything about the Templars, so choose. It's like, oh well, obviously I want to go with the mages because it's met this really cool mage, and this has got this really cool, Alexius is doing something, and I don't know anything about the Templars, so why would I do that? So I think that it very much, the Inquisition does hook you to do the mages. It feels more default than Templars.
It would have been interesting if we could have met him, the southern realms of Ferelden, where there's the water with like all the undead. Yeah, if you could have met him there trying to help like the spirits trapped in the undead corpses before you go to the Templars, like you could have been trying to free them or aid the ones that are suffering because of the curse that's there with the Avar castle.
And it would suit him as well, that kind of area, wouldn't it?
Really would have fit in, especially with the big hat.
But no, yeah, I love Cole. I really do. He is my son. I adore him so much. And now I feel bad that I didn't like him at one point because he is so well developed and so good. And his dialogue about Fenrirel is like the best theory crafting stuff ever. Just for those tiny little pieces of dialogue he has given us. It's like, okay, now we can understand so much about the elves, Solas, the Elven Pantheon, and all that stuff. And it's great.
Every single line he says is just spun off into countless theories all over the internet.
Yeah, literally. Hopefully, my new theory is out by this point, but it's literally a lot of just cold dialogue. Just like, yep, he said that. Okay, and he said this, and he said that. Okay, cool. Theory time.
I've seen a bunch of theories. Like, I don't think it's true, but there's a bunch of different lines he says that people think could reference the Warden or the Orlesian commander.
Oh yeah.
Coming back in 4. There was something like, although you turned back the tide of darkness, you'll need to fix the time when the sky goes dark, or something like that. And everyone's like, oh, the Warden might come back.
No, that would be sick.
Although I highly doubt we'll get it. In the next game, I really want to see either my Warden or at least know how their story ends.
Yeah, to have some closure about that. Even if it was a codex or like oh yeah, they're with Liliana or Morrigan or Alistair or Zevran and they're doing X, Y, Z and they're happy or they're not happy, whatever, Or they found a cure to the calling and that's been instrumental to Fadus and X, Y, Z, whatever.
Yeah, I think I've mentioned it before that maybe what's happening at the Warden base is besides the Griffins, maybe there has been a cure to the blight, but
Yeah,
it strips the wardens of their power, so no one's going to want to stay as a warden or something revolving around that.
that'll be interesting.
We
Of
found a
course,
cure for the blight. Ah, but if you keep getting cured, you can't help if there is another blight. You need to stay and fight Darkspawn instead of
yeah.
living a happy life.
So I suppose
But
talking about the
yeah,
next game though, how excited are you for the next game?
I'd say that I'm cautiously optimistic, but I
Yeah.
can't hide the excitement I do feel every time they reveal something new.
Oh, for sure.
I'm tempering my expectations. I'm thankful that they've gotten more time and that
Yeah.
they've been able to spin it into a fully single player game. They've been leaking out environments and little bits of like the beta combat they had in the last trailer against
Yeah.
the like
The
the
little
spider with hands, which was
yeah.
freaky.
Even those tiny teasers get us going. It's like like I know
Yeah.
hype is not a good thing. Hype kills games, but the excitement, the fact that Dragon Age 4 is going to be in existence and it is in the works and there is going to be one day is surreal enough, regardless of what the next game is going to be about. The fact that Dragon Age is not dead and it's going to be a single player game, it's exciting. It really is. You know, it's really gets us going. It's like yes, like this franchise is returning hopefully to its roots, and we're getting another entry. And it's going to look gorgeous on the Frostbite engine. Despite the difficulties Bioware have had, it's still going to look gorgeous. And hopefully they've learned from previous mistakes with Andromeda, Anthem, Inquisition, that it will be a good game in terms of the Frostbite and learning those techniques and, you know, all that kind of stuff. Because Inquisition was great. It was great. As much flack as people give it online, not bothered about that. I thought it was a really, really great game, despite its technical difficulties. So if they can mimic that, but with 7+ years of experience with the Frostbite engine, I'm sure they can create an amazing follow-up, honestly.
Especially since they have like they're reusing the code from Anthem to like get
Yeah,
them off the ground easier.
and they've got motion
And
capture technology too, so
yes,
animations should look way better. And you've got the Anthem code base, many, many years of experience. Obviously, Unreal Engine would be great because Bioware, I think that's what Mass Effect used. I can't remember. I think Dragon Age used it. No, I think Mass Effect used the Eclipse engine, which is a form of the Unreal Engine. And I can't remember what engine Dragon Age or used. It could have been Unreal. I don't think it was. But even I know that the Unreal Engine would be easier, and I think that's this talk that Mass Effect is going to do the Unreal Engine in the future. But given that that's not the case at the moment, at least they've got the experience, they've got the staff, and they've got the code base to do it, and it should hopefully be all right. And hopefully they have more support from DICE this time and EA technicians who weren't so helpful with Inquisition and who kind of like pushed aside. Well, not Inquisition, it was more Andromeda. They kind of pushed them aside for like other projects in EA, and then that was mainly I think an issue with Andromeda where they needed technicians, they needed help with the Frostbite for this new studio in Montreal, Bioware Montreal, yeah, and the EA technicians were working on they were shuffled to other projects, and they were kind of left to kind of just work out for themselves. So hopefully they don't need to do that anymore. Hopefully they do have the help and support that they deserve for creating the best Dragon Age title possible.
yeah, especially since Battlefield 2042 released recently, so they should have a few like spare hands they can send over to help with any issues that are popping up in their pre-development cycle.
Well, for sure, yeah. Like that game's coming out really soon. I know the open beta was the other day, but like
Oh, that's what it
considering
was.
it's at that point, though, yeah, surely like there'll be people who can leave that ship and go to Dragon Age.
Just
Interestingly enough, though, like Battlefield is a good example because I think EA hired another studio to take their time of a project to then work on Battlefield. I can't remember what studio it was, but they had all hands on deck for Battlefield to ensure that they could create the best Battlefield game possible. Hopefully they could do that with Dragon Age. Get more hands on deck for the Frostbite if they need it, of course. If they don't need it, that's fine. But give Dragon Age that support too. Don't just give it to Battlefield. Yeah, Battlefield's great and all, but Battlefield will always be fine. Battlefield is not a sinking ship at the moment, is it?
no, it's
Ironically.
it's raking in millions.
Yeah, whereas Dragon Age, for Bioware, it does feel like, and I'm not trying to fearmonger, but it does feel like it's a last stand. Andromeda's mixed, diverse of opinions. I thought it was okay, but generally it was not well loved. Anthem was a flop, and yeah, it's like, okay, can we hopefully they will.
We have seen EA cancel studios for less, so
Exactly.
yeah, I'm at least happy that they're getting their shot and they're giving them the time. They're obviously putting their faith in BioWare, but it also does feel like this is your last chance.
Yeah, and I know that Mass Effect is in the works, but I do think if Dragon Age isn't a success or isn't at least, I think, and I see this online a lot, It can't just be a good game. It needs to be amazing. I don't know if I believe that, but I think it's interesting to think about. Like Dragon Age, yeah, it needs to be great, but it needs to actually knock the ball out the park. And that's given Bioware pressure, but like given what's happened recently, I think it does need to be a really, really good success. It needs to be a hit, just to show that Bioware are back, so they can then continue their legacy and they can, push ahead forward with the correct path. But I don't know. That could just be a little bit of YouTube clickbait, but I think I think it's got some merit to it. Bioware do need a win. They need a big win, and I think that not just in terms of the fans and consumers, but also just in terms of EA and the recent flops they've had. They do need a win. They really do. And Mass Effect Legendary Edition was a great win for them. That sold many copies. And I mean, I don't know how hard it is to remaster a game, but they did that really well. I thought that the changes they added were great, and yeah, that was really good.
It revitalized the series and managed to bring in a lot more fans as well. On the topic of needing that win, one thing that has given me a lot of hope for Dragon Age is from that pre-teaser trailer we got, the combat with the Warden with the shield up and rolling around the abilities. Yeah. I do like what I saw there of it's not just the Dragon Age Inquisition. I felt that the warriors movement was kind of limited unless you took a few skills. Whereas it looks like that's just a regular ability, being able to dodge out of the way, and that they might have incorporated some of Anthem's more reaction based dodge mechanics.
Please.
And I also like that it was zoomed in and over the shoulder instead of instead of being 20 meters away, it was sitting on your shoulder, and it felt more close and almost claustrophobic against the the lich it looked to be fighting.
That's what I loved. And actually about the dodges, what was cool, obviously when the warrior dodged, I think it would be cool if each class has a different dodge. Warriors just dodge. Maybe
the rogues could do a flip as they go.
Flip, yeah, and then mages can.
The mages could
fade step.
The fade step. That's what I was thinking.
That would be really cool. But I don't. As long as everyone can dodge this time, it'd be great, because I think that separating that between rogues, warriors, and mages was a bit weird. Because warriors could
they could do their roll or their charge. The rogues had their chain hook to pull them in and then kick off. They had their backwards archer.
Yeah.
Yeah, and they also had all their invisibility spells. Besides Fade Step, mages didn't really have any other means of escape.
So I hope that
I think there might have been one in the Knight Enchanter subclass. Although that's another thing I hope to see in the game is with subclasses, I hope to see more crossover. We've talked about this before, almost the triangle theory of subclasses. Get the usual necromancer and blood mage or something. Warriors can have their warden and blood reaver. Rogues can have the assassin and archer and stuff like that. But have some crossover, bring back the arcane warrior. Yes. Or even maybe an arcane rogue, someone who shoots magic arrows out of a bow. The rogue can have an arcane trickster going in with daggers and casting illusion spells, or the fear spells from Dragon Age Origins and the entropy class. And the warriors can have battle mage buffing themselves with AoEs when they get hit and buffing their shield. Warriors could cross over with rogues and have a duelist class, and the rogues could similarly cross over with warriors and maybe sneak around with a giant greatsword.
Be amazing. Something that I always talk about, though, I want the Bard class back. Why did they
that
get
would
rid of
be
that?
A good rogue.
The thing about Bards and Dragon Age is it's kind of confusing now, because
they're both the assassins and sometimes also mages.
Yeah, you've got the class, and then you've got the social archetype for Bard.
And Liliana was both in Origins.
Yeah, so it's okay, so you've got Bards in Origins, which are rogues, just full-on rogues, but then also Occupation, she's also a Bard too. And then in Inquisition, it's okay, Zither is a Bard, but he's also a mage, so he's a bardic mage. So it's okay, can we just have both then? Can we say that bards are mage rogue hybrids? Because that's what I did with my D&D character. I'm okay, he's a bard, but he's a mage bard. Because in Dragon Age, it seems like it is that way. Bard is more of a social thing where it doesn't really matter. Why can't we have a bard that could be a warrior, mage, or a rogue? Or maybe just let's stick between rogues and mages. So I want to be a bard again.
Yeah, just let your bard have a lute, and their pick or their little instrument can be a focusing crystal for a mage, and they just play and let the music even a lyrium pick to be able to
be
affect the fade around them.
Yeah, Zither in Inquisition's multiplayer has his hand and he pulls out of his staff and he just throws magic at people. And then he casts different spells, so you'll do X, 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 and that'll create an ice combination, and you'll press a button, and you'll cast an ice spell with your guitar string, by strumming your guitar. And then you'll cast a movement spell by pressing X, Y, X, and then you'll go faster. And it is such a cool dynamic, and I know they probably couldn't do it in a single player aspect, but they could. They could literally copy that. No, you know what? They could copy those animations, copy that kind of that thing. There you go. There is a mage class as a bard. It's amazing, and I loved it, and I would love to have it in a single player entry. Like, you know, especially when we are going to Tevinter, we're going to new places. A mage full with magical possibilities. I know that bards are kind of an Elysian thing. Even so, I want to see it. I think it could be amazing. But something like a bard. It doesn't have to be a bard, but like that kind of musician uses instruments as weapons and casts song spells. Could be something different in Tevinter. But
you could even have a mechanic around if the enemy can't hear you or if they're wearing helmets, you're less effective against them or something like that.
Honestly, it would be amazing. And they've done it. That's the thing that gets me. They've done it in Inquisition, in multiplayer. So it's like, all right, let's have this in a mainline entry. No, we talked about what we'd like to see. So I think we should streamline into a big conversation we want to have about dark fantasy. As we know, Dragon Age has been, it's a dark fantasy genre. It's been dark fantasy since Origins, and it's kind of departed from its dark fantasy genre since Inquisition. For some good, some bad. I think a dark fantasy return would be a good thing. But what do you think is appealing about dark fantasy, about the dark fantasy genre relating to Dragon Age?
Relating to Dragon Age, I think what originally appealed to me was at the time I hadn't played a lot of like dark fantasy games, and my first Dragon Age game was 2, and my dad got it for me at like out of like a bargain bin, and I played that game for like a year or two before I even knew there was an Origins, I wasn't very smart, obviously. It was number 2. But the moment that stuck with me from that game was, you know, there was like the blood that stayed on your character, which I'd never seen before. There was all the blood magic rituals, and the thing that stuck with me most was what happens to Hawke's mother. The tearing different women apart to recreate someone, and like he would have severed her head and like re-stitched it to a different body and then was keeping her alive with necromantic magic. I remember seeing that and I was like, that is extremely messed up. And just that guttural reaction, I instantly hated the villain along, like, with, I already did despise him because he was wanting to win other women, but I felt that guttural reaction of that's what he did to my character's mother.
Yeah.
And in the scene where Hawke, like, is just cradling his or her mother, even if you pick, like, the wisecracking line, if that's who you've been playing with, it's still just, like, dripping with sadness and just, like, trying to cover up the happiness. And I think it's that... Yeah, like the dark fantasy can just hit you so gutturally. It's not afraid to pull punches. Things in this world are horrible and it's going to show you to them. Like Origins, taking the city elf origin, what happens towards the end of that regarding the Lord's son. Don't even need to bring that up. It makes you able to hate the villains more for the despicable things they do. But at the same time, it also makes better villains, I find, because it kind of blurs the lines between what really makes good and evil, because there's a lot of good for some people, good for others. Like Solus is the perfect example, because he's trying to rebuild his people's homeland. He's trying to aid the people who have been suffering for so long. But to do so, he has to slaughter every other living thing and break down the veil. Yeah. In his eyes, he's doing good, and to the people he'll save, they'll hail him as a god, as a savior, but to everyone else, he is currently the villain of the world.
Yeah, it's that moral complexity, isn't it? The thing about dark fantasy compared to high fantasy and other types of fantasy, that it's more real, it's more palpable, more of a surreal experience of, oh, this is the world, it's this kind of crappy experience, it's everything is awful, nothing is good. And unfortunately, I know it sounds very, very, very pessimistic, but that is like the real world at times, you know, you're down on your luck, it's not good experiences, and having that in Dragon Age, it just brings out those real aspects of our real world. But on top of that, you do have friends, you build a family, companions, romances that make the world, that fill up this dark, dark, awful world and bring you happiness. And that's also just like real life too. As much as this world can be awful, you'll have family, friends, and always people that support you. And that's exactly what Dragon Age is all about. It's that surreal fantasy fulfillment of getting through the world, of getting through this crappy world with companions, friends, and family. Of becoming someone who can rise above that and can see the light at the end of the tunnel. And that's great. And the themes, I love that. I love the themes that incorporates blood magic, necromancy, all the kind of things that go into it that make this really dark universe, that gives the player these choices of what they want to do and how they handle these really serious situations. It's great, and I feel like for Origins, few RPGs, I only think of The Witcher, really do that, and that's what defined Dragon Age at the start. Its inception was these dark choices, having these dark paths and avenues open to you, and deciding what you want to do. Like, for example, all I think about is Connor. Do you want to kill Connor? Do you want to do the right thing and go get the mages to get rid of this demon? Or do you want to sacrifice him? All that stuff.
Yeah. It's those small moments of brevity, like going back to your camp and conversing with your
Yes.
romance or just your friends and having those nice conversations, and then immediately watching the blood dripping onto the map as you go off to your next destination where things
Absolutely.
could be horrible.
Yeah.
And just specifically with Connor, at the time when I played Origins a few years after having two, the amount of choice there was in Origins cannot be overstated. In most games, it would just be like, you got to go get the mages to save this kid. He'll be here when you get back. Whereas in Origins, I went upstairs to try and check on the king, and then Connor comes out, and there's the option to kill him.
Yeah.
And then there was the option to sacrifice his mother, and I was like, oh my god, I did not think I would be allowed to kill the demon child.
Yeah.
And then I felt horrible after doing it for the first time, and I was like, I've ruined everything.
No.
Oh, but his dad's awake, and the first thing he asks, where's Connor? It's
Yeah.
like, this is not a good start.
Don't ask. Just gone down to
Technically, he's fine. He's in a better place. The Maker's watching over him.
Yeah.
Well, Yana, you'll vouch for me, right?
But I think that's what defined Dragon Age, and I think it's all those themes that you get: brood mothers, darkspawn, all of these
The brood
things.
mother. We don't need to talk about the brood mothers.
It all goes into this dark fantasy, and I think Inquisition did pull it away a little bit, but I understand for its reasons of like expanding the plot, and you're not just the hero for Eldon or Hawk, this kind of smaller role. You're in all of Thedas, and I think if you look for the dark stuff, it's there. It really is there. I just think
They still lean into it here and there in
It's just
parts.
not
There was still
as-
the occasional like Tevinter like blood rituals.
Yeah, Nightmare Demon and the Envy Demon and Corypheus himself is obviously a very dark character and what he's trying to do, and it is departing from that dark fantasy genre. But I think it's been a natural departure. I don't think it's a forced departure of we can't do that again. I think it's just like, you know what, the direction of Dragon Age isn't going is to be so dark and typical. It's actually changing because the plot's changing. We've gone through these dark antagonists of Archdemon, obviously a very evil character, Corypheus, there is no redemption in Corypheus. But now we are changing the game is tonally changing. With Solas, who was a very morally good character. I think if it was dark fantasy, which I wouldn't mind, it doesn't fit the tone of the game, which is to be grey. So I think that's what the developers, at least it's what I see what they're doing. They're shifting those tones from less dark, less this crapsack world, and more of this shifting grey of, well, actually...
I feel like in the next game they could have the best of both worlds. Like when you're in Tevinter, you could easily just have full dark fantasy.
for sure.
Everything's horrible. When you're going to Weishaupt, it'd probably be like lighting up a bit for whatever's going on there. And wherever else you journey, things will be light up. But the closer you get to Tevinter, like just around the area, like blood magic's frowned upon, but they all practice it. Like there's just so many horrible things. There's slavery. You're not going to be able to really move past that without really touching into those darker themes. And every game had a reason for what it was. Like Dragon Age Origins is, in my opinion, is probably the darkest one so far.
Yeah, it is.
Because you're in the middle of essentially a zombie apocalypse with people, with women being taken to be created into brood mothers, people were being slaughtered, or the person in charge was killed by his most trusted general, and he was turning them on the only people who could save the day. There was no way that was going to be a high fantasy game. Dragon Age 2 was a little less so, but you were a refugee amongst hundreds who'd poured in from that apocalypse, and just as things start to get better, the tension between the Templars and mages forced them to turn to blood magic, which starts to make things horrible again, and by the end it just all collapses into this whole boiling pot, which goes over into Inquisition. And that war's still going on, but since it's so widespread, and you're more focused on closing the Fade, and it's just about the demons... it's there's not really too much space to lean into that dark fantasy because it's more about saving the world as opposed to fighting this one chaotic dark force.
Exactly. Inquisition, it's all about literally uniting Southern Thedas against Corypheus, against his army, against, to fix the breach. It's much more widespread and not as honed in and personal as both Origins and 2 are. They are very personal journeys where you can really get into those emotions and those characters, where you can kill the main character's mother and have an entire quest dedicated to that and dealing with that. You don't get that in Inquisition because the plot is less about... It's still about the hero, but it's less of a personal journey and more of a hero's journey. It's more of just a great undertaking and about, literally the ultimate fantasy fulfillment of defeating a great evil, building an army, having your own castle. And yeah, it's less about like underdogs rising up like Origins and 2. You literally are a verified celebrity in Vadis as the Inquisitor.
Yeah, at every point in Inquisition, when you feel a high, it's immediately taken from you.
Yeah,
You close
yeah.
the breach, Corypheus destroys your town. You finally manage to fend off Corypheus and feel like you've got the upper hand. He reopens the breach and is about to like send the Temple of Ashes hurtling towards the ground. And
Even at the end,
like
Solas leaves you.
yeah,
Like,
Solus leaves you and reveals that he's an ancient dead god who's come to tear down the veil, and Trespasser just builds on that.
and then takes your arm.
Whereas takes it, but also saves it. And I do like that whether he was your rival, friend, or lover, he still has a reason to keep you around, whether it's arrogance or
Yeah.
caring for his friend or just wanting his lover to last a few more years. I do find it a little weird with the whole Solavalin one, simply because, I don't want you to see what I'm going to become. Go, live your life. You'll die in a few years with everyone else, but I don't want you to see what I'll become. I'd rather you be dead in a few years.
He didn't want Sullivan. He didn't want the villain to die by the Cunari, so that's why he would rather they die, I think, in peace than die being ravaged or being slaughtered by the Cunari or being taken over by the Cun and then die. So that's what it means. He'd rather they weren't captive to the Cunari or were killed by the Cunari because he despises. I was about to swear then. He despises the Cunari, despises the Cun, and all of it.
I do understand that, but I still find it a bit weird, even when.
Yeah,
And I appreciate that they gave you the option when you can even say, "I want to go with you."
Yeah,
Like you can insinuate to Solus that I don't care what you become, I just want to stay with you. And he's still. You can even see in the facial animations, like he's pained when you say that.
Yeah. He's like, oh, I wish I could do it too, but I can't.
I wonder if there's an option in 4 where your Inquisitor might inadvertently help Solus because she doesn't want him to die at the hands of the new protagonist or the Evanurus.
It would be cool if they kind of died together, but I know it's very, very, like, edgy. And I think that would mainly be a Llewellyn, not just Inquisitor, that would be a Llewellyn thing. But it'd be cool if they did die together. But, I mean, that's also, like, I don't really want Solas to die. I also don't want my Llewellyn to die. But, it'd be cool if they just had a final moment together where they just, Solas doesn't want to die alone. That's his greatest fear. Inquisitor, maybe she wants to be with Solas. All right, Romeo and Juliet's down then, like...
Or to stop him from completing it, she willingly sacrifices herself to die while taking him with her. But his last moments are realizing that he's not dying alone. Just because I brought up the Evanurus, I feel like 4 has the opportunity to lean into the dark fantasy again, because I hope it does something similar with Origins, where every time you find an Evanurus, it's centered around something dark and horrible going on. Like in Origins, no matter where you go, there was something wrong going on. The Mage's Tower, abominations and blood magic, people being slaughtered and turned into demons. You go to the Deep Roads, just brood mothers and the insinuations of how they were created. You go to the elves and it feels a bit lighter going there because it's like, oh, the sun's shining, like everything seems fine here.
But then,
and there's the ancient ritual of the keeper because his children were violated and he had to turn that back to and he had to turn that back on the humans, and now different people are suffering, including his own people, but his pride is stopping him from undoing it, and his hatred. So they could have something like that, like Gillinan making her horrible creations. You could fight like very twisted, like mangles of flesh just carved together from whatever she could grab to like send your hero. You can go into a town and just see like the remnants of the people that maybe haven't been like put into creatures, and then you see like just different limbs just sprouting from a very hastily created creature just to slow you down, and
like centipedal monsters with human faces.
Like every single one of the Elven gods has a way to create something horrible out of the people of Thedas to send against your hero.
In their own ways too, where it's completely different and unique to the other. Like again, creating monsters to they speak about Valandin, who because he had such a huge vanity, he literally he filled up pools and lakes of blood because of the sacrifices that he wanted from his folk worshippers. Pretty dark stuff, but like you can just imagine them loose on Thedas and what they would do to the people, what they would try and do to our hero, what they would try to do to Solas, all the kinds of things they could do, and how they could definitely bring back that dark fantasy tone to a whole new level, of what they did.
Especially when you add Red Delirium to the mix, like
Oh yeah.
Inquisition, I felt that most of the dark fantasy came around the twisted abominations of the Red Lyrium. Like the Red Lyrium Templars, just watching them mid combat, like just
Just
sprout
fall.
like the
Yeah.
the mangled limbs and the lyrium just like jutting out of their bones. It happens every single fight, but when you consider it, that's really messed up. Just regular humans wanting to do good have been tainted by this rock and just sprout into an abomination mid
Yeah.
fight, and they're force fed it. And you can see like when you go to the future and you see your companions are like growing this stuff, and there's just like the black veins coursing through their eyes. They know they're dead.
And the
Alistar's
implication that it
mother,
carries
the
the blight as well, though, is it just brings it all full circle, doesn't it? It's like, oh my goodness, it just brings it all together. The fact that it's just Red Lyrium now containing the blight, coming back together of this is all blighted stuff.
Fiona, that was her name. Yeah, Fiona's like 90% lyrium by the end, and everyone talks about Red Lyrium, Soulless, and the Idol, and what could happen with like the Dread Wolf coated in Red Lyrium. But what if the Evanurus get to it first? What
Well,
if the
yeah, but there's
Evanurus are all
yeah.
tainted by Red Lyrium?
That's another theory of like, what if they have a Eurus? What if the reason that they became so mad in their lust for power? What if they mined the Titans for lyrium? That lyrium turned into red lyrium, and they were blighted. And that's why they became lustful in the first place for their power, because they had literally been blighted. I think something like that is got to have happened. Right? What would have brought them to kill Mafal? I think they could have totally just gone up and killed Mafal anyway. But I think this shift in they mined the Titans for their body. They're creating bodies from lyrium, and then suddenly the Evanurus are now going and killing Mafal. It's like, what happened within that process? What happened for them to do that? And I think they're either blighted or they were maddened by red lyrium. But even there's a story about Andruil who spoke of things forgotten and brought a darkness to the lands that plagued the lands, and Mafal took that darkness away from her. That
Yeah,
literally
the
sounds
Void
like the
Armor.
blight. Yeah, she just spoke of things unforgotten, but she literally plagued the lands. And it's like, okay, is that the blight then? And then Mafal took that off her. Does that explain why Mafal has a relation to the blight then? So did Andruil, did the Forgotten Ones, or did someone like that create the blight? And that's where it originally came from. And that's why the Evanurs are so mad, because they are blighted, just like the
Or
Magisters.
it could be a Meredith case where, although they weren't
Yes, yeah.
blighted themselves, they spent too much time around Red Lyrium and it slowly started turning their darker like tendencies and just making them
Yeah.
aggressive.
For sure, I
Mithal
think,
maybe
yeah.
tried to take it away or do something, and that's why they turned on her.
Well, we know that they created bodies from lyrium. What if they also created bodies from red lyrium? So they literally inhabited red lyrium bodies. So no wonder they became crazy and they were mad with power. They literally could have been in red lyrium bodies, which would have been insane powers, insane magic. You know, we know that red lyrium carries the blight. It would have been blighted magic, like Corypheus has too. So it's kind of that relation there of I think it's foreshadowing of like, okay, so you've gone from the archdemons and their relation to the elven gods. Now you've gone from Meredith, red lyrium, and that also relates to the elven gods. You've gone from Corypheus, Magisters, Darkspawn, and that again relates to the blight. How is that all going to come together? And it's like, okay, well, the Evanurus were blighted and they were maddened by red lyrium, and that's your next foe or whatever. I think it all does come together in that regard. It's definitely interesting for sure, and it could just create some mental narratives. It really could, and it excites me. The
You
prospect of that excites me.
I am very excited to see what they do with the Evanurus. But I've been wondering, do you think that they'll appear like Soulless, where they could blend in with society fairly easily, or do you think that after they're released, they'll turn out like Corypheus, like completely mangled, their mind not quite what it once was, confused to their surroundings, and just with unbridled power and lyrium, making them into mini abominations essentially? And
That's
the
what I
years between
imagine. Yeah.
the years in between Inquisition and well, whatever 4 ends up being, after Solus releases them, they'll just be untamed and chaotic across the land. And that's why he thinks he can take care of them, because they won't be in their right mind, similar to how Corypheus was when he was released
Yeah.
by Hawk.
Yeah, I think that's how I imagine them. Like they are just already festering and already ready just to go crazy on Thedas. I don't know. I think they might even be subverted though. I think some subversion that maybe they're not as. I don't know. I want to think that I don't want it to be as typical as it sounds. You know what I mean? Like
From Solus's perspective, I feel like he is technically correct, but
yeah, yeah,
what if it ends up being a similar situation of, although both sides are bad and are going to do horrible things, what if
yeah.
your protagonist has to choose between aiding Solus or aiding the Evanurus
Oh,
and unleashing them on the land once Solus is gone? But that's
what
the
if,
better option, slavery
yeah.
or extinction or something like that.
Choose between the destruction of this land for the destruction of the Vale, or choose between defeating Solas for sheer havoc of what the Evanurus could do to this world.
Yeah, they
I would like some subversion because I don't want to believe all of them are bad. I know the majority of them are definitely bad. I get that. But I don't want every single one of them to be bad. I want like at least June, or like Silas to have at least been somewhat alright. But I just don't like the
I find
idea
it
that
difficult.
all of them are bad.
I find it difficult to believe that every single one of them had a hand in killing Mythal. Like,
Yeah, yeah.
I don't believe that she was powerful enough that they all had to team up on her. Some of them may have been complicit, and he may have thrown them all into the same loop,
Yeah.
and that's why he banished them all. But I don't believe that every single one of them had the intention to kill Mythal. Or if they did, maybe being locked away, some of them were able to resist the temptation of the red lyrium, or like the madness that it construed around them.
Yeah.
On the subject of Mythal, how do you think she's going to return?
I think that she will return in her new vessel, which will be Morrigan. There's some subversion around that too, I think. I think you were never in danger of me. You shouldn't. Oh, you don't have to worry about me, Morrigan. I think that people misconstrue that. I don't think that by her saying you were never in danger of me means that she is not going to take over Morrigan's body. I think it means that the power of Mafal is not something that should worry you. It is a gift. It is a boon. You are not going to be in danger by having this boon. I think that it's more about actually Morrigan's perception of Mafal as a demon, but the reality is she will be even more powerful than ever. She will have Mafal, she will serve Mafal. In Mafal's perspective, isn't as evil as it sounds, as Morrigan perceives it. So I think that, but just because she says you are no longer in danger of me, that doesn't disclaim intent. I still think that there is intent on Mafal to possess or take over Morrigan's body. It's just about how Morrigan perceives it, and she needs to not perceive it as evil, because obviously a soul cannot be forced upon the unwilling. So I think that once Morrigan perceives Mafal's boon as something great, which I think she could do if she drank from the Well of Sorrows, then she will be the next vessel of Mafal. Other than that, it'd have to be Kieran. It'd have to be Kieran. Because if you don't have Kieran, then you're screwed. But then it would have to be Morrigan. So I think it's either Kieran or Morrigan. But I think Morrigan would do anything for Kieran not to be possessed. So I think that Flemeth or Mafal would put Kieran in a situation where Morrigan would have to accept Mafal's boon. So then she would have to then accept Mafal as her next vessel by putting Kieran in danger, so that so as she said, a soul cannot be forced upon. So then she would make Morrigan accept it by threatening her, essentially.
On top of that, with the threat of the Evanurus and souls being in the world, maybe it won't come down to not being unwilling, but deciding that accepting the soul is better than dying with the rest of the world.
Yeah,
and
exactly.
that's exactly what Mythal expects, because she knows what Solus' plan is.
Yeah. And she knows that she needs a body anyway, and Morrigan is the only one that will do. Unless she has another daughter, which is rumoured in Navarra and the Northern Foreign Forests. Like, even so, Morrigan, in her entire life, has been groomed to be the next vessel. And I think there just needs to be a time where Morrigan will not perceive it as a witch, or she will perceive it as the alternative is worse. Exactly like how Solus created the Veil. The alternative was worse. The Evanurus would have destroyed the world. So I think that it's just a matter of time when Morrigan will be the new Mafal. And that's how I think Dragon Age will end.
I've seen some fan art that shows Morrigan in Flemeth's getup, but with her like youthful looks and like her black hair being in the horns, and I think that'd be a very cool scene to see.
Absolutely.
Just on cool scenes. Even if you don't expect it to ever show up in the next game, what is something you would love to see in the next game, regardless of how fan servicey it is? Or
I talked about this in my latest theory, which I imagine is out by this point. But I don't know what the Dreadwolf is. Is it a shape-shifting form of Solas, or is it a separate entity from Solas? Regardless of what it is, I either want Solas to transform into the Dreadwolf, or I want to see him riding or with the Dreadwolf. That is the ultimate fantasy fulfillment I want. I know we'll get it, but I just want to see the Dreadwolf, either its spirit form, or as Solas shapeshifting it. I don't understand the complexities behind it, but again, I'm exploring that in my latest theory, and I'm still writing that theory at this point, by the way, so I probably come to a conclusion in my new theory. But there is so much that we don't know about the nature of the Elven and the nature of the Ancient Elves and their shape-shifting forms. We see that they have the form of the Divines and that there were reserved forms for the gods, and Durfman had a sinner who did take the wings of that form at the behest of Gillinan. But we don't exactly know what these forms are and what did the Evanurus exclusively have them. But as we know, Solas is described or is depicted as a Dreadwolf, and he somewhat has this Dreadwolf form. And it's also hinted in Trespasser when we see that these codexes were like marked with wolf claws, and the Kunari were scared when they had saw someone coming through, which could have just been Solas. But there's a lot of speculation about Solas either shapeshifting or the Dreadwolf being a separate entity in the Fade, and obviously into Internights it confirms that the Dreadwolf has taken full residence in the Fade. So I'm just wondering, is that Solas shapeshifting, or is it a separate form of Solas? But regardless of that, I just want to see the Dreadwolf. I want to see him either destroying the Veil, chasing after our new hero, rising up from the ashes, eating someone like he does in Tevinter Nights. That is something that I, hands down, want to see. I think other than Solas Rising, I would like to see a griffin. I would love to see not flying it, not
Yes.
riding it, maybe just a baby griffin, and you get to pat it on the head. But what about you?
Just on the Solus, it'd be interesting if he could only take the form of his Dread Wolf when he's projected himself into the Veil.
Yes.
Instead of because
Oh,
he was
yes.
physically in the Veil and he didn't seem worried about revealing anything when he was there. So maybe it's more like maybe he has to do like a meditation ritual or something, and he projects himself, and that's what he sees himself as, this great wolf monster being able to achieve his goals or something.
I have a lot of theories. Ultimately, though, I think that when he created the Veil, he sundered the Elven Empire, and by sundered, he literally took aspects of the elves out of themselves, because even Sola said the Veil took everything from the elves, even themselves. So he sundered multiple aspects of the elves' being, and we assume that the elves were originally spirits, so therefore, when he sundered the world, he also sundered himself, which sundered the Dread Wolf form from him, and therefore it is a separate entity somewhere else in the world. Now, maybe when he destroys the Veil, the Dread Wolf has access to both realms, like the Evanurus would. Maybe that's also a reason why the Evanurus are so weak, because they are also sundered from themselves as well, just like Solas. So it'd explain why the Evanurus are locked in the Beyond, and why Solas was somewhat okay because he stayed in the mortal realm. But he is still sundered from that form of himself. So when the Veil was destroyed, if the Veil were to be destroyed, Solas would have his full form back, as would the Evanurus, and that's what I think it's all about. That's when they can come back in full force and they could have that fight again. But for the moment, the Evanurus is sundered from themselves, and so is Solas. It would explain why he was so weak, why he couldn't unlock his orb, why he needed Mafal's help, and why he still hasn't got that Dreadwolf form yet, and why it's in the Fade, because it's still out there. But once he destroys the Veil, I think this again, it's a huge stretch. But I think once he destroys the Veil, he can then be both at the same time. Maybe then it is a shape-shifting form. Maybe then it is, whatever. I don't know. But that's the theory I've got at the moment about it.
I'm just imagining Solus and the Evanurus fighting in like titanically huge like demon forms
Yes.
on the horizon,
Oh,
while your character's just on a mountain, not being able to do a thing.
that is what I would
It's like
love
giant, like
to see.
like kaiju fights or something like that.
And even if Solas has taken Mafal's form, he wouldn't just be a Dreadwolf. He would be like an or a dragon Dreadwolf, like a draconic Dreadwolf with wings or whatever.
Archdemon wolf.
Yeah, absolutely. Which I think would be amazing. So you'll just have a flying wolf against like an owl or against like a harler. It would be amazing. What about you? What scenes do you want to see?
There's one scene that I've imagined, and there's no way they would put this in the game because of all the world states and everything. Or maybe they would, but you just have to change out party members. I want to see like a final confrontation with whoever the final boss ends up being. We'll put Solus here for now, and just like a side-on shot of Solus standing over a party of 4, and that party of 4 being your Warden, your Hawk, your Inquisitor, and your new character.
Yeah.
Like all 4 your other party members are like holding off the other spirits or whatever, and it's just you get thrown in there, all those 4 make it, and you just get thrown into combat, and you can just switch between all 4 of your characters as all the stories just converge to finally put a stop to Solus.
Oh, that would be sick.
Similar to when you meet Hawk in Inquisition, at different points of the game, it's just like, would you like a default or a custom hero of Ferelden? It's like, what?
They're doing it.
He's in the game. He's in the
They're doing
game.
it. Yes. I think they should do that at the start. So then you don't know when it's going to happen, but you'll know it's coming up at some point. But then you can get the surprise of, okay, I've created my Inquisitor, I've created my hero Ferelden at the start of the game before even loading it up, like with Ryder, and you create your sister. And now it's just a case of it'll happen when it happens, and that is going to be the surprise of when they walk in. Obviously, you'll spend every single moment going, when are they coming? Yeah. When are they coming? But at least
but I feel like that would also spoil the surprise. Whereas in Inquisition, like Varric alluded to Hawk, and everyone was like, it has to be Hawk, or maybe it isn't, or something like that. And then as soon as you talk to him, it's like customized. That's when you were just like, oh my god.
To be fair, they spoiled us because they put that in the trailer. You could see Hawk and Alistair in one of the trailers, and you're like, wait, what?
I did
Like,
see that, but I thought that was
yeah.
more like just like concept of just
Yeah,
like
true, true.
even they're fighting against this whoever the
Yeah.
enemy is, which was
Nightmare.
turned out to be Corypheus.
Yeah.
I'd never played the Corypheus DLC for Dragon Age 2 before Inquisition.
Legacy. Yeah, never did die. That's why it was a bit of a surprise for me. Because
Yeah, I
I was
was
like,
like,
oh, it's
oh,
cool. Yeah.
it's a red demon thing, and Hawk's like, I've killed him. I'm like, I played your game. No, you didn't.
Wait, what are you talking about?
Is he one of the demons I fought when I was looking through grimoires?
Yeah, yeah. But I think it was a better reveal if you didn't play it because you didn't kill him and you're like, oh yeah, I heard about Corypheus, but then that's like, oh, he's a seventh Magus, that's amazing. But if you played the Dragon Age 2 DLC, you're like, oh, wait, I already dealt with him. It's like, oh, okay.
Wait,
I think it's
weren't
underwhelming for
you?
those who did.
I think it would have been surprising to see like the red lyrium growing on him and like what that could have alluded to. But I guess it's impossible to tell unless you speak to someone that had done it. But just mentioning the Magisters, I want to see the gothic cyberpunk Tevinter so bad. I want to see the
Yes.
flying circle. I want to see what the streets of Minrathous all look like all the.
All of it.
I don't feel good saying I want to see slavery, but I want to see like
Yeah.
I want to see the themes and aspects that are all like centered around it, like their society that accepts it. Maybe your
like,
character could.
yeah,
One of your origins might be like if you play as a mage elf, you might start as a slave in service to a magister.
I think Tevinter Society is one of the most exciting things. Just the Altuses and then having the Sleepers or the Soprani, having all of these different social archetypes clash is going to be so good to see. So we had a slice of Orlesian lifestyle and nobility in society. I'm so excited to get that for Tevinter. Just having, oh, that is, yeah. Yeah, and even
You,
just
you,
seeing the fashion sense is going to get me.
oh, I always wanted to wear Dorian's robes over any of the mage
Yeah.
robes that our Inquisitor got. They're so stylish.
Yeah, and more of that, yes. And I think what's going to be cool, that as you said before, like, I think they could do this dual fantasy, this morally grey fantasy of, okay, Tevinter's really dark, and this is where a lot of, like, you get the dark fantasy themes. And then you go to Antiva, and it's literally Disneyland high fantasy. I think that could totally be a reality, where, while it's not going to be all happy-go-lucky in Antiva, it's still going to have more of that high fantasy of these are the Antivan crows, this is nobility life, this is what it's like in a plutocracy, this is what we do in Antiva. Yes, the Cunari are banging down our doors and they are invading Antiva. Antiva City is safe and this is what life is like as the crows, this is what life is like in these beautiful streets in this Venice-like city. I think a lot of that's going to be a nice dynamic that we're going to have. Okay, you want to go and enjoy some dark fantasy, go to Tevinter, go through the streets. Okay, you want a bit more high fantasy, more nobility, more of that nice kind of that sense of fashion. Okay, go to Antiva, and I really do actually see that going ahead, where you have that dynamic of not meshing up the genres, but meshing up the tone and the themes of each city. And I'm excited to see that. I really am.
I feel like they could almost parallel each other where you go to Antiva and everything seems fine, but you could just like look in a building and see a crow violently executing someone and everyone just goes on about their day, and you just see that and you're wondering why no one's freaking out.
Yeah.
And then on the flip side, you go to Tevinter and there's slavery, there's blood magic, there's terrible like classism and everything happening there. But you also find people like Dorian who are trying to change it, like his allies, and you see the good in Tevinter. And one
Absolutely.
thing that I want to point out is the trailer that showed like the locations, like the Antivan castle with the weird like fade shield, the streets of Minrathous with the floating circle and like the glowing signs. The Minrathous shot, just like being on street level, looking up at the like floating city with just like the dark, oppressive atmosphere. I want it to always be nighttime there and just have that claustrophobic, dark feel, like darting through a dark alley on like a walk home, like just that very terrifying, like grimy feeling of not really knowing where you are, but it always feels dangerous.
Yeah, I wonder if it'll have a day and night cycle, or if Tevinter will just always be dark, or at least Minrathous. I don't, because I think if you saw that in the daylight, it wouldn't be as thematic.
It would almost feel, alien based on because we've only been in Southern Theta so far. It would look like in the day, it'd look very alien, and at night, it would almost feel like you're in the deep roads with just how hostile it feels.
How cyberpunk it is, but even cyberpunk has a day and night cycle, and in the day things, it's more chill. At night is when you get all the neon lighting and you can feel in the city. But I wonder if BioWare will do a day and night cycle. I think they would probably prefer just to have it at set times, but I'm not sure. But as we know though, Minrathous is the city that never sleeps, and maybe that is like literal because it's always dark. I don't know.
like how Antarctica has a point during the year where there's like 30 days of night or something like that. It could be like that, where because of its location, it's almost always dark there. Or maybe depending on what quest you do, it changes the time of day.
Because I would like to see it in the daytime. I would like a day-night cycle. I
Yeah.
like those in games, and I know that they tried to do it in Inquisition, but I think it was a lighting issue.
Yeah. Well, they did it with Haven, where it was always daytime, and then when Acrifius attacked, there was the
It's
night
nice.
cycle.
Yeah,
So it
yeah.
could be something like that.
Yeah, maybe at certain key points. Yeah, like in Winter Palace, when you went there for the Grand Ball, it was dark, but then when you went there and Trespass, it was light. So maybe there will be certain key points, but I would just like a day and night cycle where when you're walking around the city, like when you were in Dragon Age 2 in Kirkwall, or in Orlais in Inquisition, the time just changes slightly. I don't know, it doesn't feel like it's a Bioware thing, and they do it in set pieces, but I would like to see Minrathous walking around it in the daytime. But I guess we'll see if they'll do that. But honestly, I am just as excited for Antiva. I think Antiva it just looks beautiful. It looks like Disneyland Paris mixed, obviously, with Italy and all the just yeah. I am so excited to see that. It just looks regal and beautiful, and I really want to walk down those streets and just take it in. That's all I want to do. I don't want to. I don't. I don't want to play the story. I just want to walk down the streets of Tevinter and Antiva and just soak it all up.
Oh, underdog hero, we need your aid. Sorry, I'm just walking through the market district of
Yeah.
Antiva. These are some nice leather boots.
Yeah, exactly.
If the trailer and theories are right that the next game has the origin system of maybe like Grey Warden, Sakari, Antivan Crow, and Executors, which one are you? I think you've mentioned wanting to do the Antivan Crow before, haven't you?
I'd be torn between Tevinter or the Antivan Crow. I would be really torn. I'm a rogue player, so rogue would work well with Antivan Crows, but also Tevinter. You could be a really cool rogue. I think I would go with Tevinter. I think I would. Yeah.
I guess it depends on what the origins really are. Like if
Yeah,
it turns out to
yeah.
be like Magister or Magister Assistant, it wouldn't be as interesting as like the Sakari Spring Slaves.
Like
As for me, again, it depends on what actually ends up happening. But I'd go for a Kunari Grey Warden purely because
that'd be
we've never seen one before, or even heard of one, at least to my knowledge. On top of that, for character creation, I hope we get like body sliders because I kind of want to play
Yes.
like a runt warden, like a runt Kunari almost. Like they got thrown out of the Tal Vashoth for being like almost
much
human
of a
size or like slightly weaker, but the Grey Wardens took them in because he was willing to like fight against the Blight or just do good. And just being able to see a Grey Warden who's also Kunari for the first time would be really interesting.
It would. It'd be a cool dynamic of Taloshoff Kunari joining out to stop the blight by becoming a Grey Warden. That would be awesome. And I'm just excited for that slice of Thedas. I don't talk about this all the time, but just seeing whatever we're getting. I'm not going to put, any expectations, but it seems like we're going to see the Anderfels, Tevinter, and Tiva. I'm not sure about Navarra. That maybe just an Acropolis is a hub place to explore, but it at least seems like we're seeing Tevinter, the Anderfels, and Tiva.
Yeah.
And I'm just so excited just to get those slices of life in Thedas, just seeing how different it is. The weather, the cities, the dynamics, the characters, the people, the culture. The Imperial Chantry, for example, is the complete opposite of the Chantry in some regard. They have the Black Divine, and then they have male preachers. I don't know what they call. I don't know what they call them. What do they call them? Not preach.
They probably be fathers as opposed to the mothers and sisters
Yeah,
of
but
the main
the
Chantry.
sisters-
And I wonder if they have like similar artifacts from the time of
Of Andraste. Yes.
yeah, of
we're going to
Andraste,
the
like
the Holy
just like
Land as well.
yeah, the conflicting like ideas like
Yeah.
we have evidence of this story and like maybe they're both wrong and that'll get revealed.
Yeah, like
And-
that's the thing. Like they believe they're the Holy Land because Andraste was killed there. Yes, she was from Ferelden or a village. I don't know. I think she was from a village up in Ferelden. But like they're like, well, yeah, well, tough. I don't care where she was born. The Holy Land is Tevinter because she died here. It's like, oh my goodness.
Like they both have good points, and
They do,
just
they
on
do.
that, I hope some choices in Inquisition that seemed menial actually play into the next game. Like maybe if your Inquisitor chose to believe they were sent by Andraste, that could conflict with what Tevinter has to show that
that'd be
maybe it doesn't.
cool.
Or you mentioned Navarra, like if we get to go there at some point, the choice with Josephine later in the game where you have to choose between allying with Navarra or Tevinter. Maybe that could come into play. Like Tevinter's more willing to aid you because they aided the Inquisition, or if you had Trevelyan and you could aid with both at different points, like that could provide like assistance in a certain mission because they were with the Inquisition, or they might have they might not be so willing to provide aid because the Inquisition didn't side with them. Just like those menial decisions that didn't do anything in Inquisition might actually play into effect in 4.
Yeah, I would love that. Tiny little nuanced changes Even just about your
The
character, like your Inquisitor's like backstory, or about what they meant, or their personality, even in just like codexes too. That'd be amazing.
You could find the Avar clan that you banished to Tevinter, and they could aid you in fighting some. You could find some magisters hiding in like a castle with goats being pelted at the wall.
Oh, that would be
That was
amazing.
such a good. That's my favorite like comedic scene from Inquisition. Is just
Yes.
seeing the goat get hurled against the stone fortress.
Yeah, I would love little small changes. I know, like Divine and who we set as the new Emperor or Empress of Olay may have some consequence. Well, they hopefully will have some consequence, even if it's just like a letter from a Divine or maybe a singular appearance of the Divine. But I think a lot of the changes for me, a lot of the choices I want is to do with the Inquisitor, their personality, how they are, and their journey of what they're doing since, what they did since, and how they're going to follow through with Solas, and who they romanced, and what they set in stone for the Inquisition. Those things are the choices I'm interested in. But even things like, are the Chargers alive? Could we see the Chargers again? Can we go into Tevinter? Maybe we go to like a small pub, and there's Krem with some of the Chargers.
Or if Iron Bull romance Dorian, maybe you get a scene where you meet with
Yes!
Dorian,
That
an
would be
assassin
amazing.
like jumps off like a balcony, and just see Bull come out of stage left and just boot him out of the way. Just get away from my boy. Something like that.
Yeah,
Who you pick as Divine could also have a
I think that'll be, yeah,
like
that has to be a choice.
consequences on maybe on the tone. Like
Oh,
you go to Minrathous,
yes.
and Liliana's more welcoming of like every race being able to be accepted. So some people in Tevinter might be like considering the Divine, even though it's not their Black Divine. Maybe the Black Divine might be more willing to like let tensions lower because the South are becoming cultured. They're
Yeah.
allowing people in such as us. Or if you pick Vivienne and she's more tight gripped and fearful of magic, Tevinter might be more hostile, and the mages and the magisterium might be slightly scared for their freedom and like cracking down harder, causing more suffering. Or if you have Cassandra, it's like kind of the best of both worlds, but also the worst of both, where just based on who's divine the South, the North has those tensions and bad outcomes. The only other thing I'd like to see in the next game is, even if they're small locations, being able to revisit Skyhold, Kirkwall, and maybe Denerim.
I am done with Ferelden in some regard, but I think seeing Skyhold again could be a must, especially if the Veil was created there. I think Solas might sentimentally want to destroy the Veil there.
What if that's the final location
Yeah.
where you have to defeat Solus? It's just him standing in your throne room, the sky torn asunder, and the veil being to split, and your character walks in maybe with the Inquisitor in tow, and you're almost reversed for how the Inquisitor was standing there with their advisors, and now you're here trying to stop their potential lover.
That would be full-on fantasy fulfillment. I think there might be some version with Solas, but if we go with the idea that Solas is just straight up the villain, or even in the middle of the game having some sort of Skyhold scene where you will literally confront Solas with the Inquisitor at Skyhold, yeah.
I don't think that Solus will be the main villain, or if he is, they'll end up doing something similar to Inquisition's ending, where after credits roll, there's a small scene that alludes to like maybe Mythal absorbed his essence or is finally strong enough to take her vengeance on the world, and that leads to a potential hint to 5, or there's more DLC that could set up someone who's like been pulling the strings or something, because with Solus being Pride, someone could very easily be guiding him through an unseen hand.
Someone like Mafal?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Like with Flemeth's scene when you see her and she gets extremely angry and shows like just how vengeful Mythal
Oh,
wants to be and
yes.
taking her revenge on the world. I don't see her just playfully
Letting
joining
him.
up with Solus, getting rid of the Evanurus and just being like, all right, I've had my vengeance. I'm gonna,
All right, yeah, that's
I'm just
it.
gonna go.
Cool.
I'm just gonna go to sleep.
Yeah, no, it's gonna be. There's got to be some twist there. There's got to be some
Yeah.
reason why she wants him to go on, whatever that be. I think then she's gonna get her vengeance. If
Yeah,
it's a
and
veil
it has
being
to be.
torn, if it's she doesn't care for the world, I don't know. She clearly cares in some regard, but I think that's probably to do with the old gods and the blight and making sure that the blights happen so she can get old god souls. But I think that there's some greater scheme to her, and why she lets Solas do what he's doing.
You believe in the double blight theory?
Somewhat. I think that the old gods seemingly so far have a huge thing going ahead for the next game because we've seen 2 old gods in the trailers that we assume. And I think that I mean, Solas looks like he's after the old gods, so that looks like to me, is he going to become tainted and unleash the blights because he needs their souls, or because Mafal needs their souls, or whatever? Like, there seems to be like he is going to be unleashing, or at least getting to the 2 old gods, whether untainted or not. And we don't know what happens if you do awaken an old god that isn't tainted. We've only seen them be tainted. So like,
Or what happens when there's no more old gods to turn into archdemons. I don't think there'll be a double blight because that just seems like that's too much for anyone to deal with. A blight, two blights, the Evanuris, Mythal. But I think we'll either see the end of or an explanation as to why, like when he spoke to the Inquisitor saying that they believe that killing the archdemons will end the blights. I think that he'll get rid of the old gods, but will still still find a way to end the origin of the blight or find a way to contain it. That could be the subversion. It's just, hey, we found the old gods' bodies. They're dead.
Yeah.
They're not even tainted, but there's still darkspawn.
they're still going to be black. Because yeah, even Solas did say like, why do you think that the death of the old gods will stop the blights from happening? It won't. So yeah, it might stop the archdemons, but the blight won't stop. Yeah, I don't know if we'll get a double blight. I think that's just some indicators towards that, but it's definitely going. It seems that at least there's going to be something about the two remaining old gods.
They'll either be killed, or since they aren't tainted, Solas could very easily take their essence or their strength.
Yeah.
Or even bind them to his will.
Yeah, absolutely. Or take their essence, take their whatever they are. If they are elven gods, if the old gods are elven gods, if they're aspects of the elven gods, then like maybe that's what he wants. He wants their power. If they are the Evanuris, then surely he'd want to kill them, or he'd want to find a way to deal with them. Or if they're whole cruxes for something, I don't know. Or if Mythal wants them, so they have to be tainted, so Mythal gets them. Who the heck knows? I think more leaning towards Mythal is what I feel about the old gods. Maybe she wants them. I think she wants the blights to happen, so she gets the old gods' souls. But then Solas is very much against that. But then Solas and Mythal don't have the same scheme. Yes, they are in cahoots, but they both have different plans. You know, like Mythal disapproved of Solas when he gave his orb to Corypheus. Maybe Solas will disapprove of Mythal when she wants the blights to happen. You know what I mean? So I think that assuming that they're both on the same side too much is blind, because they definitely disagree in a lot of regards.
Yeah, because Cole mentions that he saw an archdemon in the Fade. What if when Mythal put her essence into the mirror, it was so she could take their essence in the Fade, or bring them under her control or something to that extent, without Solas focusing on it, because he's more focused on the binding of spirits and finding a way to tear down the veil. She could very easily just, Flemeth's back and she has two archdemons, so that's good.
Yeah. I still think there's something about her, maybe the old gods themselves actually being an aspect of her. She's put herself in an amulet. She can transform into a dragon. There's a lot of association with Mythal's dragons and her being able to split her spirit. Maybe when the veil was created, or maybe when she was killed, aspects of her being went into the old gods, and that's why she's after them now, to recollect herself. So she's recollecting her spirit so she can then actually get more power.
Or like Morrigan mentioned that Mother's magic keeps the darkspawn away, but we've never seen magic like that. So she could easily just be, having maybe the mind or like the power of an archdemon, just saying, avoid this hut, you vile creatures.
She speaks the calling as well. I don't know how, but
Yes.
Mythal speaks the... So it's like there's a huge connection to Mythal and the Blight, and maybe it comes back to it must come back to the pre-Veil times, when she was killing titans, and when the Evanuris spoke things unforgotten, and when there were rumours of Andrul taking things from the void and making armour from the void, so, and then Mythal taking that away from her. There's a huge tie to the Blight from pre-Veil and Mythal, so I think the Blight or something like that, it's to do with Mythal, or there's some aspect of Mythal needs to be dealt with. But then again, Flemeth did say that the greatest of evil in this world is the Blight. He said something about mankind being silly to not recognise its evil. So there is a greater evil about it, but that could just be Mythal saying that, so men go forth and kill the archdemons so she can take their souls.
Or she's willing to use that evil because she knows a way to stop it.
Yeah.
But she needs to have it meet her own ends or something. And just on the subject of like resurrecting old gods and blights, do you think the other magisters will appear, similar to Corypheus, the architect, and the ones that have been referenced?
Love to see them.
And
at least one as like a mini boss. Maybe you go to Deep Roads, maybe you are, I don't know, wherever. Maybe one's masquerading in public.
Using like some of the magisters as like puppets, and they all devoted to him, and they're like, Corypheus was wrong because he was tainted, but this is the magister that follows our god, and he's taking control. Maybe that's why the people in charge aren't willing to do anything, because he believes that he can outlast the elven gods.
Could even be the champions of Razikael and Lucican, because they're the two old gods who are yet to be tainted.
Yes.
So we could even have remnants of the Venatori supporting this new magister and being like, hey, forget Corypheus, this is the better magister, this is the better god.
The only other question I really brought up was if you could bring any of the characters from the comics as a companion,
Ooh.
or like their abilities as a subclass, who would you bring?
I'd,
Because for me, I would love to see Francesca
oh,
as like a
yes.
mage companion,
Plant
and maybe she
magic.
can teach you, yeah, she could teach you like the plant magic, or she could even be like similar to Dorian, how everyone thinks he's going to be an advisor. She could be like an ally to the new character. But I'd love to see like sprouting trees and similar to what
Yes.
Meryl was doing in Dragon Age 2, like keeper magic, stuff like that,
Vine
but with
magic
a
and things like
but
that.
with like the Magister twist.
That'd be amazing. I'd love to see Francesca. For me, less about the skill set, but more because I love her. Via. I would love to see
Oh,
Via.
absolutely.
Because I know she's just killed recently, so she's not going to be but she's very good at stealth. So maybe she could be more of just like a really good thief class. Like maybe knockout powder, stealth, breaking down locked doors and stealing things like we saw in previous Dragon Age games. Things like that she'd be great, good at. And then maybe dual daggers and is maybe obviously she has to kill. She's going to have to. But
Yeah.
yeah, knockout powders and uses remedies like that. More of like a Tempest in Inquisition, where you're using powders and bottles and things like that to gain more power and speed. I'd love Via. I would adore it. I think she would be amazing.
She,
But just because her character is so good. And Freema Agyeman would be an amazing voice actress for her, because she is
oh,
already based on her.
that would be incredible. Do you think we'll get more red wraiths since the
Yeah, I think that's what I think about the Evanurus. I think that could be maybe foreshadowing for the Evanurus. Maybe they built bodies of red lyrium, and that's why they are powerful and lustful in their power. And that's what I think it could be an indicator for. We know for a fact that bodies were created from lyrium. Even the Maker has said to have created bodies from lyrium. He created man from the emerald waters of the Fade, and he drew forth its essence and created man in flesh. Emerald waters of the Fade is literally lyrium. We know that bodies have been created from lyrium. Whether that's man now, I don't know. Obviously, the Makers probably doesn't exist. But the Evanurus mined the Titans for their created bodies from their blood. Lyrium bodies exist. So do red lyrium bodies exist? Surely red lyrium bodies exist. Surely. And that's what I think the Evanurus are. I think they literally have red lyrium bodies. Maybe when Mafal killed a Titan, it didn't die, it slumbered, or maybe when it did die, its lyrium got infected, or maybe it was blighted, and that's what caused, maybe the blight comes from the Titans, and it's an infection against the Evanurus, and because the Evanurus had inhabited bodies of lyrium, the Titan died, or the Titan cursed them, or it was blighted, that lyrium became red lyrium, and therefore they are not just blighted, but are also maddened with red lyrium, and their bodies literally inhabited red lyrium, and that's how you can coincide Corypheus strapping red lyrium on him, and Meredith and the blight, all into this kind of package of the Evanurus. Okay, so you've seen Meredith being mad with power with red lyrium, you've seen Corypheus being mad with power with the blight. Here's the next fours. It's the Evanurus, and they have both the Blight and Red Lyrium. I think that is the next connection. It's in that mural that we had at the Game Awards, with Meredith in the corner, Corypheus in the corner, against these two old gods, and whatever they are. And I definitely think that is the next thing. Red Lyrium and Blight coincided, for sure. I think that has got to be the case.
what if? Because Solus keeps saying that the idol is his,
Yeah.
but we haven't gotten any elaboration on that. What if he was the one to place that near the Evanurus to get them angrier, but he didn't foresee them?
Oh,
Like, if he didn't
yeah.
foresee them killing Mathol, so he considers it his fault, and now he wants that back to try and either undo it, or maybe that has some aspect of it. Because
Yeah,
I
that
don't
could
see
be
how else it
good.
could be
Yeah.
his. Like,
Yeah.
he placed it there thinking that it would like show the people that look, your gods are weak. They do
Yeah.
not have your best interests at heart. But instead they killed Mathol, which would explain why he's so sorrowful whenever he sees her or like speaks about her. He
I
could consider it
think
his fault. He was too prideful and didn't consider the
what
fact that
happened,
they may
yeah.
turn on her.
When he says it's his, I think what he means is what happened, what the idol is depicting is his moment, and therefore he thinks he takes the idol as his own, because that moment in the idol is what happened. Maybe when Mafal died, he embraced Mafal. It's said that the dwarves have crafted the idol from something that they had seen, something like that, but it was crafted, it's dwarven in origin, so the dwarves have crafted this idol to represent a moment, and I think that the moment it is what happened between Solas and Mafal, and that's what he means by it's his idol because it was his moment, if that makes sense. Unless it literally is just his idol that he used. He did say to the Forgotten Ones and the Evanurus that there was a weapon that was in the Beyond, and it was in the Abyss or whatever, and Solas told them both to go get this weapon, and when they went to go get the weapon, he separated them in their realms forever. Maybe he said that weapon was the very Riddler idol, and that's what he used to dissuade them and to get them to do it. I'm not sure, but it could just be either the representation of what happened in the past, or it could be the weapon itself that he used against Evanurus. And maybe it's just that, maybe that's what all it is now. It's just that what it means as opposed to actually using it again. I don't know.
I hope we're able to get like a flashback or like a vision sequence of how like the actual veil happened, because that could lead into the dark fantasy as well. Just like from the perspective of like an elf within the Empire, you just watch your like the veil go up, you watch your buildings like collapse, you watch people in the streets being destroyed, you feel like you watch the essence being ripped out of the people. They like start to wither, they watch as they like age before their eyes before turning to dust. You watch your entire empire just fall, people dying in the streets, and then at the center of it is a remorseful and pained Solas. And he's just taking on all the pain of his people.
It reminds me of literally. Are you a fan of Doctor Who at all?
No. The only Doctor Who I've seen is when they put on an episode at school.
Okay, fair.
Like literally back in the day.
Doctor Who, Solas is based on the 10th Doctor. Doctor Who basically did the same to his people. He had to destroy his own planet to kill the Daleks, and essentially it is the same as Solas. He had to create the Veil and destroying the Elven Empire, but also destroying the Evanurus. And literally there is an entire movie called The Day of the Doctor, and you just see in this painting, this painting projected through time, him stood there in the middle as Daleks and as his people called the Time Lords are fighting against his planet, and you just see this veteran guy and he has to decide what he wants to do. And I totally think we could get a scene where either from Solas's memories, maybe we could go and find his memories, that's been hinted to with Inquisition, or maybe he shows us it himself, or we go to another place like a Temple of Falun Din, or we go to Skyhold in the Fade, or I don't know, we go somewhere where the veil is thin and we have spirits that linger there, exactly like the Via de Thara, and we have those memories, or we have a spirit show us those memories. We need to have that. We need to have that portrayed in the game. And there are so many ways they could do it. Maybe we could be taken to the Fade by a dreamer, like Felisan. Maybe we could just link with Solas. He could actually show it to us himself, because he can speak to anyone in the Fade, as proven in Inquisition, even if you're a dwarf. Maybe we could just stumble upon that by a spirit. Maybe we could just witness it somehow miraculously. We need to see those memories, because it is crucial to understanding what happened. I don't just want to be told it in codexes. As much as fun as that is, and as great as it is, I think we need to see it. I really do. I think it's a key pivotal point of lore that needs to be witnessed. I really do.
Wonder if we might be able to hinder Solas's plans by going through an Illuvion and like tearing down the pocket dimension that's there. Like, it's mentioned that the Fade is very close, but what if it's like situated in the Black City, or like it's like a direct link to like the Elven City within the Fade. It's like a shortcut, but to do so would tear down the means of like transportation that the Evanurus provide.
Well, yeah, but the thing, if you think about it, Solas has got so many mirrors. What is going to be a good way to stop him from getting everywhere? It would be to tear down a pocket dimension that connects the Luvians. It would be to stop him from being able to get everywhere physically, because he can get anywhere in the Fade with his Dreadwolf form or whatever that is. We need to stop him in the mortal realm getting everywhere. So tearing down a pocket dimension for the crossroads to stop him from travelling through Luvians would be a very good way to stop him from being able to get everywhere.
Whilst getting rid of a part of ancient history. I don't imagine Morrigan would be happy.
She wouldn't, but Morrigan at this point, she could go either way.
I can also imagine a scene where you're like preparing to go into the the Illuvion to try and like foil Solas in some way, and as soon as you step through with your party, he's just standing like 5 feet away from the mirror, just waiting. That would be so intimidating.
Honestly, I think wrapping this up, it's something that I would like to see to fit this Dark Fantasy theme. I would like to see, and I know this might cause some eyes to roll, I would like to see Solas just being a little bit evil, being a little bit scary and dark. I want to see him desperate, but at the same time just hell-bent to fulfill his scheme, and therefore going against our new hero and being the Dreadwolf, taking that. If not Solas, and I want to see the Evanurus, I just want to see, I know this, it sounds weird, I just want to see like a proper true dark antagonist who also has morals and goals, but also just seeing how evil, how I want to see how ballsy Bioware will go. Will the Veil be destroyed? How dark will the antagonists be? What will Mafal do? What will Solas do to ensure that he will destroy the Veil? How dark are we going to go? Because I just want to see how complex they'll create that narrative and what our hero can do.
I would love to see an ending where the veil is torn, but it's in
Yeah.
a way that both worlds can coexist. And
Yes!
with Solus, he might have to die for that to come true. And we've already heard that he's said that he'll do anything to save his people. And now that he's away from like Lavellen and the Inquisition, and even if they were rivals, he was acting differently around them. He was acting more prideful if they were a rival, or his walls were breaking down if he was around people he cared for. And now that he's separated himself from them and taking on the aspects of the true Dread Wolf, he might be more willing to do dark things, knowing that he won't
Exactly.
be
Yeah.
around the people that could aid him.
That's why I think he is distancing himself so he can become what he needs to become. And I know, like, as much as Solar Valens will say, but he's not evil, but he's not. No, he's not at the moment, but that's why he is distancing himself from Llewellyn so he can become that, because he wants to become something that he doesn't want anyone to see. He doesn't want anyone to recognize what he'll become. Whether that's as a friend or even as a foe to Inquisitor, he is going to become something scary.
Evil is a matter of perspective. He doesn't see himself as evil. He sees himself as doing what's necessary. But to his victims, he could be an archdemon for all they care. And I want the origins, like regardless if you're an Antivan Crow, a Warden, a Sakari, or an Evanurus, I want the origin to end all the same, with Solus just showing up and wrecking your shit.
Yes, me too. Me too.
Just absolute, like maybe killing your mentor character, or just ruining everyone around you, and you're just left picking yourself up, sitting in the ashes of all you knew. And there you go. You have a motivation. You know your target, and now you have to try and find allies willing to stand against the Dread Wolf.
Even in a subversion of that, Solas might actually appeal to our hero and try and recruit us for his scheme to defeat the Evanurus. I don't know why.
If you're an elf, you can, maybe there's the option to like start with him, but then you slowly see how far he's willing to go, and you're like, oh well, I would love to be part of the old world, but my family, my friends, like the world I've lived in, it'll all be destroyed unless I stand against you. And yeah, I'd be very interested to see how they start the game, because Inquisition, literally from clicking new game, starts with a bang.
That's an absolute bang. Yeah.
Whereas Origins had more of a bit of like a slow descent into madness as soon as you got to Ostagar, and then everything just crumbled.
Everything opens up then, and it's like, okay, this is Dragon Age.
Everyone's dead. Good luck. You're like 23 years old basically.
There's 2 Grey Wardens left. Good luck. But I think with that, we can wrap this up on dark fantasy and just everything about Dragon Age. I really thank you so much, Lambo, for coming on. Where can people find you if they would like to give you a follow and check out your stuff?
I'm only on Twitter at Lam0G. I'm sure I can send that to you, and you can put it in the description or something like that. Yeah. Beyond that, I don't really have any other socials, but I'd love follows. I usually only talk about Dragon Age or post-Dragon Age related stuff, so it's more of what you love, I guess.
Hell yeah. Awesome. Thank you so much, Lambo. I really appreciate it. And yeah, thank you everyone for listening and enjoying this conversation. Really, really appreciate your time if you've listened to this entirety. But yeah, I hope you are all staying safe and having a good day. But I will see you all in the next one. But until then,
we should go.